Our next performer is a Moth Story Slam winner. She's been on Risk on the soundtrack series, and she is the host of her upcoming podcast, Keeping It Real with Bridget O'Neill. Ladies and gentlemen, Bridget O'Neill.
So it's 4th of July weekend, and my boyfriend had just broken up with me of 2 years. His name was Levi, and he was tall, thin. He had very elegant facial features. He kind of looked like Adrian Brody, totally my type. So there it was, 4th of July weekend. I had taken an offer up with some of my coworkers to go get a couple of drinks, some day drinking. I thought that could be the solution. So out I go, and we choose this bar in Chelsea. Now, this bar that we choose is like a tapa sangria bar, but has like these windows from like top to bottom, so you can totally watch the outside. So I'm like, okay. So we're sitting there having a couple of cocktails. They're talking, but I'm kind of not listening because I'm kind of like very somber. And fire breaks out across the street above this restaurant. So I start watching it, and I said, I'm going to run out. I'm a photographer. Grab my camera. Wanted to get into the action. Didn't want to keep sitting there. So I'm kind of photographing some of the firemen, kind of going up the ladders, doing their thing. And long story short, the fire was not that major, so they put it out. And now I'm watching them kind of pack up, roll up the hose, the whole thing. So as I'm walking back to the bar, I spot this one particular fireman. And he's big and broad. He's got like a thick neck. He's like a man. And I was like, woo. Now, the reason I'm like, what? Is because it completely took me off guard. If someone's not of waif weight and a little bit effeminate, I normally don't look. So this completely took me by surprise. So I think he probably noticed that because I was like, whoa. And he kind of just looks at me and he's like, I was like, oh God, I'm not a good flirt. So I kind of just saunter off. I walk back into the bar. My friends are just like, you're very flushed. What's going on? I go, it's hot. I was watching the Fireman. And so, as you do. So then my one friend, Becky, that I work with, looks out and she sees this guy looking back at me. And then I'm looking at him and he's like, I don't know if he was doing an act, but it was working. He took off the big fireman jacket, and now he has the navy blue T-shirt that they wear with the suspenders, and his arms are just jutting out. I don't know what's happening, you guys, right now. So she says, she kind of sees and she's like, whoa, I'm going to give him your number. I go, oh my God, please do not do that. That is so embarrassing. Here's my card. So, why not? So she goes out and she hands him the card, and I'm watching, and I see her kind of pointing back, and him going, he knows. So she comes back in. I'm like, oh God, what did I do? Because now it's reminiscent of Bridget, 7th grade dance, and my best friend Lisa asked my crush to slow dance with me to Journey's Open Arms. And that didn't go well. So now I'm really nervous. So to make myself feel better, or he made me feel better, because they all boarded the truck, and then this big onk. And he's like, Bridget, I'll call you. I was like, woo! Now, I know I mentioned before this was in Chelsea, so there's a predominantly gay bar of men, and they're like, woo! major backing there. So a couple of days later, I'm back in the office, and there's this, the red dot, on beep, 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 beep. I'm like, oh God, already these calls are coming in already. And I pick it up, it's like, Brad. I'm like, whoa, okay. In New York, you don't expect the guy to call you back. You're like, yeah, whatever. He called back, very unapologetic, hungry, horny. He was down, and I picked up the phone. Something I'm really uncomfortable doing, right? It just feels very raw. I like to hide behind text a couple days, Google them, Instagram, Facebook, and this can go on for weeks, and I could be like, I'm still not ready. But he wasn't playing it coy. He wasn't like waiting 2 days or 3 days. No, he was like calling, like messages. So I was like, okay, let's just do this old school. Pick up the phone, call this guy back. So I call him back. Hey, Brad, it's Bridget. Where were you? You didn't return any of my calls. I'm like, well, that was my office phone. I wasn't at. Yeah, he doesn't care. So he just keeps talking. So he's like, what are you doing tonight? I'm like, tonight? Like zero. Like again, I need a lot more, space and time for this stuff. And he says, where do you live? And I'm like, so out come my mouth, like my address to Brooklyn and Carroll Gardens. And he says, okay, I'll pick you up at 8. I'm like, in a car? He's like, yeah, in a car. I'm like, guys, I haven't picked up by a car since my prom in Pennsylvania. So it's like, what? All right. Oh, that's kind of hot. So there I am. And I make sure that I'm down, down front. I don't know this guy. I'm not going to have him up my apartment. So I'm down on like the 3rd stoop, whatever step. And I see him pull up in his truck, and he comes out. Oh, my God. Just beautiful still. And but a lot younger than I remembered. But okay. So I'm standing there, and he comes up, and he goes to give me a hug. And I'm thinking, like, a little hug. No, this was like Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams in The Notebook hug. Yeah. So I was like, oh, this is going to be like a really interesting night. So he has his cargo shorts on and a tank top and his like white high tops. And I'm like, maybe we'll forgo that wine bar I was going to go to on Smith Street. So we'll go to a nice Italian joint, get him some food. All right, so we go there. And he said, sorry, I'm fixing my bra. Okay, so we get over there, and he says, what do you want to drink? I said, I'll take a Chardonnay. He's like, I got this. So he goes up. He's, she'll take a Chardonnay, and I'll take a gin with some Sprite. Can you put a couple of cherries up on that? I'm like, what? Oh, God, no. What's I thinking? And then I look at him again. I'm like, oh, yes, okay. Yep, it's okay. So then I think, okay, I can make this work. And then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, this will be hilarious when down the road I tell our children, on our first date, I had to wean your father off of alcoholic Shirley Temples. And we'll laugh and laugh. Seconds later, I try to make a joke, Fireman joke. And I go, so you from the Far Rockaways of Staten Island? Oh, Bridget, Far Rockaways, Staten Island all the way. Most beautiful place on earth. I'm like, here we go again. So I'm trying. So I said, you know what? Let's just, have a little bit of small talk. We'll wrap it up, it's nice meeting you, brother, sister, kiss, bye. Then he starts saying, how long have you lived in Brooklyn? How do you live here with all the hipsters and the coffee shops? There's not even a motels. I'm like, what? What's with the motels? Okay. So we start going back to, he says, I'll walk you back to your apartment, gentlemen. So I'm like, okay, I feel so bad having this kind of like, All right, so we get back to my apartment. And he just starts walking up the steps to my apartment. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I like to watch a little TV after some supper. Okay. I didn't know we were married for 10 years, but all right. So I go, well, that's not going to happen because I barely know you. He's like, all right. Well, can I just come and get some water? Nope. I got to pee before I drive back to Staten Island. Like this whole song and dance. So I go, okay, no. He's like, Bridget, I got to get up there. And I said, why? He's like, I got to see if your apartment's up to code. So I let him up. That's it.